All right, we're calling the meeting to order. The affidavit of posting was posted accurately. There are, of the 5 committee members, 4 here, 1 on Zoom. Do we need to? Oh, he's not, he's trying to get on Zoom.
That's gotta be his.
So Chris
right
Bossert at this point is not here.
That's her point.
So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gotta finish that yet.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Jim and Tony second. Any discussion on it? Let's vote. Okay, all in favor of approving it, vote aye.
Aye.
All right, just consent agenda has been approved. Discussion items. We're just having a general discussion regarding the future of Samaritan. I want to update you guys on a little research that I've been doing. And I do have a little handout on staffing research that I do. You guys want a copy?
So just so the public knows too, anything that's handed out will be added to the packet for the public's knowledge down the road. I'll most likely add it tomorrow morning.
So on staffing, I called a few colleges. UWM, they have enough faculty right now, although their faculty is aging. They're getting into their 50s. So state, they'll be looking at retirement before too long, and then they will have a more limited program if they can't find people to teach it. They do have a master's program that people can change careers and go into nursing in the master's program with them. Let's see, Carroll College told me the state is turning out 3,000 RN grads a year to meet a demand of 9,000. That's a huge shortage, and they expect that to continue through about 2040. The state has approved $5 million to assist students going into nursing. So we all want to get the word out for that, to encourage people to go into nursing. And I guess there's also an LPN shortage. So Moraine Park, they have decreasing enrollment in all of their programs, but including the CNA and their nursing programs. They do teach CNA at our high schools in West Bend. They used to have a waiting list. They don't have that anymore. And that's about it. And then there is at least one county, actually I found out now there's 2 counties in Wisconsin that we know about that are bringing in workers from the Philippines. So that's something to explore. So when let's see. Just to inform you, in Iowa County, I talked to Iowa County, they have gone out of the business. And I talked to their county board chair to see, their reasoning. And their population in the county is only 24,000. So they don't have that many people to support something that's losing money. And they were losing 800,000 to $1 million a year with a 60-year-old building that was out in the country with a sewer and water system specifically for it. And they were the repairs that they would have had to make to that would have caused them to have to displace their residents. So that's major. And then staffing is basically what tipped them over. Not being able to get staff, and they went through the whole process like we are, and was trying to evaluate every option. But the capacity, like they wanted a smaller facility if they would have built, and they just really couldn't make the numbers work at all. You need to have a higher capacity, and a mix, whatever, to the right mix to make the numbers work. So they decided for those, they tried partnering. They actually looked at a partnership with the local hospital. And that was looking promising for a while until the hospital started making some really unrealistic demands and said, take it or leave it. And so they just couldn't justify it. But what really put them over the edge was the staffing issue. And then I've learned since actually from Matt, Monroe County. So we've looked at Monroe County built a new facility, and they decided that they were going to put the debt for it on their tax levy, which is like in the range of $1.25 million a year. So that would be on their tax levy. And then they built it with CBRF and skilled nursing. So it was designed to run at basically a break even for operating costs. However, because of staffing, they have a wing open, and because they don't have that wing filled, they're running a loss there. And they're looking at having to go back to their county board to let them know they're running a loss and they're going to need more money. So that's not a good situation to be in. So I think that kind of brings you up to date with some of the research. Now, if you've looked at the information for the county board meeting on Wednesday, did you guys have a chance to read like Chris Bossert's letter and the resolution?
I did.
Yeah. And you guys pipe in anytime. This one's supposed to be more informal discussion, right, Mike? So jump in anytime. Questions, comments, whatever. So some of the things that we're looking at, to find the right notes here. Chris had suggested taking a look at the possibility of adding some independent living, which makes money, to help support the skilled nursing, which loses money. So with that, and then we also wanted to look at maybe adjusting our building to reduce costs. Because we have this awesome plan, with the pods that are kind of separate units, just connected with a hallway, basically is what it would look like from the inside. But there are other plans that we could look at, such as like Monroe County, which has wings for each, like the CBRF and the skilled nursing, which would possibly reduce costs a little bit. Or we could look at a traditional style nursing home, which the traditional style now is single story. Right? Do you want to describe the traditional, what the traditional style is?
It's great
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, a traditional could be one long wing period, or depending on the size, it could be a spoke where you have the center and then spokes going out. Depends on the size of the facility, the number of beds. But there are a number of ways that we could reduce the cost of the actual building. You sacrifice the ability to convert, and you sacrifice the ability of making it home-like, and that's some of the approaches that the new construction is leaning toward. But there are ways. It's not going to be a half, but the original drawing that we have that we're looking at is 25 million, and they built 22 million. But they did build also RCA, so there are additional beds with that price. So, but they're already struggling. There's no storage. They're already struggling. There's no garage. They've already gone back to the board talking about additions. So at the end of the day, we could reduce that cost. There are sacrifices, but we do not have to build one blank HE architect design. And that's something we could do. The HE architect has a history of building a whole gamut, a whole array of different models. And so I worked with them in that design. I was hoping for two things. One, to be able to convert any pod back from skilled nursing to CPRN, be able to do that. I was also looking at the future. Should at some point the county board decide to get out of the business of long-term care, it would be very sellable to the for-profits, because modular is the way to go. And that's what, but we certainly could make it, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the term plain Jane, but we could do that.
Okay, thank you. And then, yeah, where we got to, so the original quote was 20 in the range of 25 million. So where we got to 30 or a little over 30, I learned from Matt was furnishings and equipment. I think there was
Contingency. It's in your packet. It was part of it. There's a box. In fact, Paul had in his presentation, his slides also. So it's in your packet of information showing what that 31 came up to, what we planned on using those dollars for: contingency, furnishings, equipment, and what have you. One thing I did learn from the Monroe project, they had new equipment, or much newer equipment, that they were able to use. They had, out of 3 brand new lifts, 2 of which had never been used. So they were preparing, as time was going on, that they would have a replacement project. And so they transferred all their beds. That's a big ticket item.
Yeah, that makes a difference. So that's where a lot of the difference is, but they also built for, I think, 98 people overall, and ours is designed for 80. So there would be, we would be able to see some cost savings if we go to a different design. I personally feel that the flexibility between CBRF and skilled nursing is critical, because it seems the way of the future is to reduce skilled nursing or eliminate sometime in the future skilled nursing, and go more towards, assisted living in the various stages of it. So to have that ability to flex, I think would be really important. You guys have any comments on any of that?
So just a question back for Matt. So was it, am I understanding it was Monroe who is going back to the board because they don't have one of the wings filled? Right now it's closed.
Yes, it's a wing that I believe that I know it's assisted living. I'm not certain if it's CBRF or RCAC. They built two, but I'm not certain which wing is empty at this time. One of the wings. They're operating all three product lines, but at a reduced rate. One point, the assisted living wing has not been open, and their census for the skilled nursing is reduced again because of staffing only.
And their payer mix hasn't been good enough to make up for the loss.
Not with that many empty beds,
Yeah.
no. And in fact, I'm not certain what their payer mix really is.
Thank you.
I think it was like 50 skilled nursing, 24, or it was designed to be 50 skilled nursing, 24 CBRF and 24 RCAC.
Yeah. But-
Originally, if they were at full capacity.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but the payer mix,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did
Right,
they,
that's different too.
did they share with you, how they arrived at the 1.25 million on the tax levy? Did they have a referendum? Did they share that at all, or?
Well, they had a referendum to determine whether or not the residents of the county wanted to stay in the business or not, and that was 70+% said yes, stay in the business. So that's why they moved forward with it. What was the other question?
That was
Was
it.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
if I may add. They operated with a tax levy prior to,
Oh,
and the decision was they would be allowed to bill if that tax levy would cover the payment of the building and not go into operations. Prior to that, it was keeping up an old building and operations.
yeah. So basically their debt load for the building is what they're covering now, which is like 1.25 million
Yeah.
approximately
Per year,
a year.
yeah.
Does anyone have anything else on those items for the staffing? We'll get more on staffing later. More detail. But for now, we just know it's I'm hoping not unsolvable.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, I made a call to a friend who is an owner of a home health agency and ask about the CNA staff shortage, because they rely heavily on CNAs as well. And I said, can you confirm that it's not just here, it's not just Wisconsin or regional? He said it's national. So he's part of a national organization that they have national meetings amongst this company, and he said it's unfortunately a very difficult situation and they don't see it resolving in the near future. They've talked about the same things. They've tried different things of having CNAs get certified at the various through the home health agency. And they did for a while, but then they can't now. And then the federal government drags their feet and they're not allowing certifications. And there's some people who are certified CNAs and they have to apply for their license, and that's not occurring. And I didn't quite understand that part. I don't know if Matt can speak to that, but.
Well, each year CNAs are required to complete, I think it's 12 credits And if you don't complete that, then you lose that certification. Then to be recertified, they may be talking about the board that recertifies if they dropped out of the market. And then now they'd like to come back.
Yeah.
I'm not certain.
So for me, it's really, I love the discussion and the idea of looking at all options, being
Mhm.
really creative. It's just at the top of all this is,
Mhm.
if
That
we build
problem.
it, will they come? If we can't
They
staff
would
it.
come, but if we can't staff it, we can't take them.
I mean, this is just a silly example because it's not related to a nursing homes or CVRFs or anything, but Linden Inn on Big Cedar Lake, a restaurant
I saw
closed.
that.
They said they had the business, but they couldn't staff
Yeah,
the restaurant. So they could make that brand new and, I don't know if people would come and staff would come. So
right,
that just keeps to be, comes up as a recurring concern of mine.
right. But learning about bringing in people from the Philippines, I mean, that was, something that I just learned about recently. So I mean, that is a creative solution. It sounds like we would have to house them, we'd have to look at that in detail because it's not as simple as it sounds. You have the visa requirements and then they would have a 2-year commitment, which would be awesome. But if you have to house them for the 2 years, now that's a problem. So, things to definitely look at and think about, how we might be able to overcome the obstacles with that. Which kind of brings us to what we're asking for on Wednesday night with an extension. Well, we would need an extension either way of, not as long, but at this point in time, we don't have the numbers back from Whipfly that we asked, the projections for operations for, 3 to 5 years in the case of a renovation, in the case of a new build, and like 1 year out in the case of closing. So it'll be 2 weeks before we get those numbers. So either way, we definitely need an extension. However, with resolution 59, we're asking for more money. They already allocated 19,000 for Whipfly to do that work that we've already requested. And we're looking to ask for not to exceed 30,000. And with that, we would have them do a market analysis for independent living to see, so they can look at our area, our geographic area, to see if it makes sense to add independent living. And then architectural costs on looking at, we were thinking 3 options there. We were thinking, Matt calls it staging, which is kind of doing a phased approach where we would, and with the current plan, we would have the mothership and like 2 or 3 pods to start, and then see about adding more later. And then looking at the option of doing wings like Monroe County did, and then the more plain Jane type of facility that, as Matt said, wouldn't give us the flexibility, but just to get some idea of the costs of that. So we were thinking if we downsize the current plan, because that is an awesome plan, that we would look at 24 skilled nursing, 16 CBRF. Of course, the question came up, can that accommodate the people that we have? Well, not today, it wouldn't. But statistically, how the turnover has gone, if we stop taking new people in, it would match up. By the time that part of the facility would be built. And then we'd have to look at demand at that point, et cetera, all the other factors to determine, do we want to build staffing, of course, major concern. And then make the decision, do we want to build the other two pods with it. So I don't know, how do you guys feel about those options?
So on that one, we would need to build at least 3 pods to start with, plus the,
Yeah, the 24, right now each pod is 16.
Yes,
I'll let Matt answer.
yes. So we would work an arrangement of somewhere in the ballpark of the 16 and the 24 bed unit. And we would go from there. We would also need to have the main building, which is a little larger, that would house the kitchen and what have you. But it would be a way of spending some dollars. In the long run, it's a costly way of doing it because the construction prices go up, and you're always faced with compatibility issues and what have you. It's not ideal, but it is a way of cash flowing. If you say, we don't have all the money, we have some of it if you get started. And from that point, it sort of would help us match the staffing we have today. So that's where we pick up some economies of scale, because we would not be paying so much to maintain staffing. And we would begin to start looking to increase staffing as we look to increase product line. And that too would give us an idea as we go through this, what do we truly need? Are we finding that assisted living is the way to go rather than skilled nursing? Or is skilled nursing, in fact, going to come back stronger than we anticipate? We really don't know. That's why I like the model we had, is because it certainly affords us that flexibility that we're ready for the future. But it costs.
Yeah, and I think I think it's downsizing like that helps with the staffing issue, and it maybe would reduce the cost to the point where maybe we would want to add an assisted living apartment in addition to that downsized or the phased approach. And then that we could see if it would result in, bringing revenues, and it might actually bring enough money that we could say, when we have staffing, okay, we have the money part of it solved, and let's build more. So even though it would cost more in the long run, it might actually make sense to do it that way under these current conditions. So that's why we'd like an architect to take a look at that and give us some pricing on what that would take.
See, the other part of this option is when we look at if we would get into the independent living product line. And that's something the county board has been very strong about for us not to get into, to compete with the private sector. That would be a paradigm shift in affording us this opportunity. But if we did that, and let's say we ended up building 80, and we could decide, what if you did 40 now and 40 in the second phase? You could do that. The positive side to independent living is that it's profitable and you need few people. And that's where you pick up dollars. But we truly need a market analysis if we're gonna do this. Cedar Communities, they're building a great number of independent living, and there are 2 or 3 other entities that are building that we truly need a study that before we invest any additional dollars of the taxpayers' money into this whole thing. I think the bottom line is it skilled nursing at all costs? That's truly the question.
Right, because, for the county board to have taken the stance of being against independent living. It's kind of like, you have 1 foot in. But you're not going in far enough to actually make it work financially. So either do it or you don't do it.
Yes.
And that would be up to the whole county board when we get to the vote at the end.
So Linda, to build on what you said, Matt, about a really sound market analysis. So I looked and I thought the last time we met there, besides Whipley, we were also considering maybe another type of consultant.
Well,
Or
we did, with the board, with the exec committee, that did come up.
Okay.
But in talking with Whipley, they have done it numerous
Okay.
times. And I thought, boy, instead of changing shifts, we know that Whipley's been a good partner, where they told us 2 years ago, there are actually enough skilled nursing beds in Washington County that we're actually overbedded with Samaritan. But on the other hand, everyone's drastically reducing, and they're reducing not because the population is reducing, they're reducing because of staffing. What turned out to be a minor problem, staffing, has turned into our major problem.
So having said that, I looked on Whiffley's website and just looked at what they were and who they were, because I just knew them by that acronym name. And I pulled out 3 areas that I would think that going to them for this additional consulting role might be one of them. One of them is based on the sound market data, right?
Yeah.
That they provide that, and they list several things. And I wonder if they've shared with you, would they do the market snapshot analysis or would they do the full market analysis?
It's up to us.
Okay, and I'm assuming that might be different in amount of dollars that we pay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that sounded awesome, that needs to definitely be done first. Then they had one on Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement, and that whole payer mix that we talk about often. And that they said that they, can address those areas as well and be a good consultant for us on that.
And we're under contract. We haven't been for a number of years.
Okay.
So they do our cost reports.
Okay, so that's good to know. And then the other one was, they had a category called use strategic modeling, not guessing, to determine physician demand. Well, I took out the word physician and popped in the word CNA.
Yeah.
So some of the things they described might make sense. And I wonder if now that it's a relatively new shortage of CNAs, like you said, it wasn't an issue before COVID so much. I mean, it was starting to be, but so is that something that they could look at? Is there any kind of modeling out there for a CNA demand?
I would hate to have Washington County spending money on that when the nation is going crazy right now, spending, and the for-profits are spending bundles of trying to ascertain what are they going to do to stay in business. And so I don't think we need to.
Okay. You don't need to confirm any further.
No,
Okay,
no.
okay. Thanks, that helps me with clarifying what Whiffley can do and
Yeah, and actually, when I talked to Iowa County this morning, their board chairman, he mentioned Whipley. They used Whipley to do all of their pro formas to look at, different mixes and what might work. So I think they're the professionals for that area. So I guess, what do you guys think of? Do you think we should pursue then? Getting more information in these areas before making a final decision?
I think we almost have to.
Yeah. I know I would like to, but staffing, well, we're gonna have a meeting on staffing, and Todd HR, he said he would get more information on, like bringing people in from the Philippines. They actually have a program for that. I suggested maybe Puerto Rico. We wouldn't have to deal with a visa, but you have to go with where they have a program to make this all work. So. But I don't know. Do we have anything else because we're here, our agenda item is discussion, so now's the time. Anything you have, bring it up.
Matt, on those plans that we have for the building, do we own those plans?
Yes,
So
yes, we do. They're not buildable plans. We didn't think of that. Yes,
I guess what I was going with, so we could go get a different quote on it, so to speak, or are we, because we don't own the plans, we can't get another quote?
the quote came from construction firm, not from AG. And the construction firm, I am at a loss right now.
Catalyst,
Pardon me?
Catalyst.
Catalyst. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're a good middle of the road they're not real expensive, they're not real inexpensive. They're good. I've had several people from the public call and say that it's too costly, and who did the bidding, and as soon as I say Catalyst, they back off. Yeah, that's you've got a good estimate, but we're not at the point that we have buildable drawings where you could really crank the numbers. It's just a ballpark.
Any other questions or concerns or anything? Comments? That covers pretty much everything that I wanted to. Anything else you have, Matt?
No, have you decided with this committee did you want 2 months, 3 months, and also do you want 30,000?
Yeah. Well, and the thought with the 30,000 is, find my notes on that. It may not be enough, and I don't want to have to come back. It depends. See, because we're starting out with the market analysis on the independent living. So if the market analysis comes back and says, with what is currently being planned in the area, we would be oversaturated and that just is not a good idea. Well, then we don't move forward with it. However, if they come back and they say, yeah, that looks like, that would be a good option for you guys to explore in order to help make this financially feasible, we would want to get a quote on building, because and also from them, kind of the mix of what we would need, so how many independent living units would we need and how many do they think the market could bear, kind of thing. So then we'd want to get a quote on building it. So at that point, that's why and I have no idea how much. Aside from what we currently ask for is 19, so if you can kind of match that up. 30 maybe short, I don't know. If we pursue, I'm thinking it probably would cover the initial, the architect for the 3, and then the market analysis, but if we want to get then drawings and a quote on independent living, maybe it would take more. So initially, we were thinking 50,000, but it sounded like we'd get pushback. So then we were thinking, well, 30, but I don't really want to come back to the board and say, well, now we need more money, So what do you guys think? Should we do 30? And if things are sounding positive at the meeting, then I'll say, well, I'll explain why it may
But I
not.
think you're going a little far, because you have a resolution before you on Wednesday, that's for the request of $30,000. So on Wednesday, you would have to make an amendment if you wanted additional money. So right now, you just really should be talking about the $30,000 before you're in the general fund transfer on Wednesday's meeting.
Yeah, and it's really hard to know how much money to ask for when you have no idea how much something costs. So I guess we leave it at the 30 because that's what it is on the resolution. And then at the meeting, we'll see, because ultimately, I think it would be nice to end up with a not to exceed 50. I mean, we're not going to spend any more than we have to. We're not going to ask for anything outside of, what we're outlining here, but just not knowing how much these things cost. It would be nice to feel that we have a comfortable amount to deal with.
That 19,000, is there anything left out of that?
I have no idea.
We won't know until
They're still working on it.
until the study is done. I think 30 would cover it.
Think so,
Yes.
everything? So, well, it'll have to. If we can't get more, then it'll have to. I mean, these companies build this stuff all the time. They should be able to give
Yeah.
us, something for based on the knowledge in their head.
We will cover what we ask so that we don't exceed it.
Okay,
My concern is that we don't get this information back soon enough and we run out of time again.
yeah, so we're asking for 90 days, which would take us to April 30th. Or April, whatever the Human Services meeting is in April, that date.
It might be a 5-week month. I don't know.
But you also haven't asked for anything as of yet. It's a possible action item at county board, so you have to make a motion for whatever you feel the committee needs. So at the moment, there's nothing. The extension is on the agenda, but there's no timetable that is set at the moment. And you guys will be taking up resolution 59 prior to that extension.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna ask. It's on the agenda before the resolution.
The chair has the ability to the agenda up in any order that he wants, so he's gonna bring 59, resolution 59 ahead of that.
Your microphone just kind of breaks up. Just so you know. All right, so we're thinking the 90. I mean, we would request this right away. The market analysis and the architectural on these 3 options that we talked about. We would request that right away. So,
And what are we thinking if the board doesn't approve the additional monies? Our plan then,
as far as extension.
extension and extending, I guess, getting more money, right?
Well, what I've heard that they would be acceptable to them is like 60 days,
Okay.
which maybe we would be able to get it done sooner.
Okay,
But I would take the 60 just to,
right.
um,
And then what about the 30,000? What if they don't approve that?
I think they're sending a message if they don't.
As a ad hoc committee,
Well-
what are our next steps then?
I think we would just have to proceed with the options that we have had. We wouldn't be able to pursue these options at all, which would be a shame. Especially on like the downsizing or the reducing the costs of what we're looking at. I mean, I think it would be a shame in general if we can't do the full study of this and look at every option. I mean, I don't foresee us coming up with more options in the future. I mean, I think if we had that many options and we're gonna make a recommendation, well, we have to see what the results of what we get back here, but there's a lot to process right there. So, but yeah, I think basically if they say no, they're sending a message. Which I'd like them all to be open-minded to reviewing what we put together.
I think we have to think about the whole county covering, and people in the southern part of the county aren't as aware of Samaritan as other portions of the county, so
Mhm.
I'm just playing devil's advocate that it's a possibility. It may be that there are board members who feel they don't already, that we don't want to go forward in the business anymore, and so they may
Mhm.
be sending
yeah,
that
I know.
message.
I know.
I'm just thinking how we can come up with a backup plan in the event that that happens. That
To-
maybe they agree to extending the time to
Mhm.
look at other options, but we wouldn't have the resources to look at other options, so.
I don't know. I'm not an architect. I am an accountant, but I don't specialize in that. I've never been in that area of it. I don't know. All we could do is go forward the best we can with, put together as much information as we can to give them to make a final decision. So
What other information are we waiting for now?
right now, Whipley is working on operational projections. I asked for like 3 to 5 years. They'll probably do 3. Because things get really iffy when you're going towards 5, I mean, projections are estimates that you can't foresee the future. So, but basically operations, how that, profit loss on if we renovate, if we new build, and if we close, then like 1 year out, and what, because that's additional cost to closing also. So, and our goal is basically to be able to put together all of the information, all of the costs, all of the assets, all of the value that we end up with, everything, the whole picture for each scenario. So that each board member has that and can make an informed decision, along with looking at their area of the county. I have been told, though, that some people around the county, as they're aging, they've moved to places like West Bend, I mean, they might move to a condo or something like that. They may be moving in closer, so where we have a West Bend census or heavily loaded, that may not be the case for the majority of their life. They may have just moved here when they're downsizing and aging.
That trend would come through in some of the analysis.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did we ever get, if we were to sell the building, did we ever get that number? What the building would be worth?
No, we have not yet. We have 4 potentials that are looking at it. I'm not certain if we're going to see a windfall.
Anything else anyone has? Any other questions, concerns, anything?
What are you gonna use the rest of that 30,000 for besides the analysis you already have?
The market analysis and then the architect and a quote on, or rough quote on the downsized of the current plan. Or changing to having the wings like Monroe County does. Or more of the plain Jane type 1-story, but still a plain Jane, what Matt was describing before, that wouldn't give us the flexibility between skilled nursing and CBRF. Anything else? No? Anything else, Matt? No? All right, I guess meeting adjourned.